Listen, I need to tell you something, and I'm going straight to the point because that's how I operate. You sitting there watching this, listening to me right now, you're not ordinary. There's something about you that's different, something special, something the rest of the world has tried to make you forget. I'm not here to waste your time with fluff or empty compliments. I'm here because I've seen patterns, I've analyzed data, and I've noticed something about you. Yes, you, the woman in this audience that sets you apart from the crowd. You're not here by accident. You're here because something inside you, some spark, some instinct pulled you to this moment. You felt it, didn't you? That tug, that whisper in your mind that said, "This is for me." Type "tell me" in the comments if you're ready to hear what I've discovered about you. Go ahead, do it. I'll wait. I don't usually do this. I'm the guy who talks about rockets blasting to Mars, electric cars reshaping the world, or neural interfaces rewiring how we think. But today, I'm not talking about SpaceX, Tesla, or Neuralink. I'm talking about you, because while building companies that change industries, I've learned to spot people who stand out, people who think differently, people who see things others miss, people who solve problems others can't even begin to tackle. And here's the thing, I see those same qualities in you. The fact that you're here listening to me isn't random. You didn't stumble into this talk. You were drawn to it because something in you recognizes truth when you hear it. You sense that I might know something about you that others have overlooked, maybe even something you've overlooked yourself. Let me tell you a story. A couple of years back, I was at one of our SpaceX facilities in Hawthorne, California, walking through the factory floor where we build the Falcon rockets. It's a chaotic place, sparks flying, machines humming, engineers arguing over tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. In the middle of all this, I noticed a woman, mid 30s, working on a component for the Starship program. She wasn't a senior engineer, not someone with a fancy title or a corner office. She was a technician, one of hundreds on the floor, tightening bolts, checking fittings, doing the kind of work most people would call ordinary. But there was nothing ordinary about her. I saw her pause, step back, and stare at the assembly line like she was solving a puzzle no one else could see. Later, I found out she'd proposed a change to the way we aligned the heat shield tiles, something no one had questioned before. Her idea cut assembly time by 15% and reduced errors by half. When I asked her why she spoke up, she shrugged and said, "It just made sense. No one told me I couldn't." That's when it hit me. That woman wasn't special because she had a PhD or a trust fund or some rare genius gene. She was special because she didn't accept the invisible rules that everyone else follows without thinking. She saw a problem, saw a better way, and acted like those limits didn't apply to her. And I'm telling you right now, you have that same spark. You might not believe it yet. You might think you're just another face in the crowd, just another woman trying to get through the day, juggling work, family, expectations, and all the noise the world throws at you. But I see it. I see the way you question things others take for granted. I see the way you notice possibilities where others see roadblocks. I see the way you feel that pull to do something bigger, something bolder, even if you've been told it's not your place. Let's get real for a second. The world doesn't make it easy for you. As a woman, you've faced barriers I'll never fully understand. You've been told to stay in your lane, to be quieter, to be less ambitious, to fit into some neat little box society built for you. Maybe it was a teacher who dismissed your idea in class because it was too out there. Maybe it was a boss who overlooked you for a promotion because you didn't look the part. Maybe it was a friend or even a family member who told you to stop dreaming so big because it wasn't realistic. Those moments stick with you, don't they? They make you second guess yourself. They make you wonder if you're aiming too high. But here's the truth. Those barriers, those voices, those limits, they're not real. They're constructs, flimsy as paper, designed to keep you in place. And you're not built to stay in place. I've spent my life breaking rules that didn't make sense. When I started SpaceX, people said landing a rocket back on Earth was impossible. Physics wouldn't allow it, economics wouldn't allow it, history wouldn't allow it. I didn't listen. I asked, why not? And kept going until we figured it out. When we built Tesla, they said electric cars would never compete with gas. They said we'd fail, go bankrupt, be forgotten. I didn't listen. I asked, why not? And we made the Model S, then the Model 3, and now we're changing the entire auto industry. You have that same instinct. You've had moments where you looked at the way things are done, whether it's at work, in your community, in your own life, and thought, this doesn't make sense. There's a better way. Maybe you spoke up and got shot down. Maybe you kept it to yourself because you didn't want to rock the boat. But that thought, that question, that refusal to accept the status quo, that's what makes you different. Here's what I've learned from building companies that push the boundaries of what's possible. The people who change the world aren't the ones with the most degrees, or the most money, or the most connections. They're the ones who see through the illusions of limitation. They're the ones who ask questions others don't. They're the ones who act when others hesitate. And you, sitting there, you're one of those people. I'm not saying this to make you feel good, though. I hope it does. I'm saying it because it's true. I've seen it in the data, in the patterns, in the way you engage with ideas. You're not here because you're satisfied with the way things are. You're here because you know deep down that you're capable of more. You've felt it your whole life. That restlessness, that sense that there's something bigger waiting for you. Let's talk about what that something bigger looks like. It's not about becoming a billionaire or landing a rocket on a dime, though. Hey, if that's your thing, go for it. It's about recognizing that the rules holding you back are arbitrary. They're stories other people told you, stories you've been taught to believe, stories like you need to wait your turn, or you're not qualified enough, or women don't do that kind of thing. Those stories are lies. They're designed to keep you small, to keep you predictable, to keep you from shaking things up. But you're not small, you're not predictable. And you were born to shake things up. Think about the moments in your life when you felt that spark. Maybe it was when you were a kid dreaming up ideas that seemed impossible to everyone else. Maybe it was a project at work where you saw a solution no one else did, but you held back because you didn't think it was your place to speak. Maybe it was a quiet moment late at night when you imagined a life bigger than the one you're living now, a business you could start, a book you could write, a change you could make in your community. Those moments aren't random, they're signals. They're your mind telling you that you're capable of more than you've been led to believe. They're your heart telling you that you don't need permission to chase what sets you on fire. I remember another story, this one from Tesla's early days. We were struggling to get the Roadster into production. Everything was going wrong, costs were spiraling, and the press was calling us a failure before we even started. One day, a young woman on our supply chain team, someone who'd only been with us a few months, came to me with an idea. She'd noticed a bottleneck in how we source battery components. Everyone else accepted it as just how things are done, not her. She proposed a new supplier, one no one had considered, and a way to streamline the process. Her idea saved us millions and kept the project alive. When I asked her why, she didn't just stay quiet. She said, I figured if I was wrong, I'd learn something, but if I was right, we'd all win. That's the mindset I'm talking about. That's the mindset you have, even if you don't fully realize it yet. You've had those moments, haven't you? Moments where you saw a better way, a different path, a possibility others missed. Maybe you acted on it, maybe you didn't. But the fact that you saw it, that's what makes you different. Most people don't see. Most people don't question. They live in a box they don't even know exists. They follow rules they've never examined, accept limits that aren't real, believe stories about what's possible and what's not. But you're not like that. You've felt the edges of that box. You've pushed against it. You've wondered why things are done the way they are when better ways seem so obvious. You've had ideas others dismissed, but deep down, you knew you were onto something. Here's the kicker. You might not even see how rare this is. You might think everyone thinks like you, questions like you, dreams like you. They don't. I've worked with thousands of people, engineers, designers, technicians, executives, and I can tell you the ability to see beyond the obvious, to question the unquestioned is not common. It's a gift, and you have it. You might not feel like you do. You might feel unsure, doubtful, like you're not enough. But that's just noise. That's the world trying to drown out your signal. Your signal is clear to me. It's clear in the way you're listening right now, the way you're leaning in, the way something in you is saying, he's talking about me. Let me make this personal. As a woman, you've faced pressures most men will never understand. You've been told to smile more, to be nicer, to not take up too much space. You've been judged by standards that have nothing to do with your ability, your appearance, your tone, your likability. You've been made to feel like you need to prove yourself twice as hard to get half as far. I see you. I see the strength it takes to navigate that. I see the fire in you that refuses to be dimmed, even when the world tries to turn down your light. That fire, that strength, that refusal to be boxed in, that's what makes you extraordinary. That's what makes you someone who can change things, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. I'm not here to tell you it's easy. It's not. Breaking through those invisible barriers takes work, it takes courage, it takes being willing to be misunderstood, to be doubted, to be told you're too much or not enough. But you've already shown you can handle that. You're here, aren't you? You're listening to me, a guy who's been called crazy, reckless, impossible, and worse. And yet, here we are, rockets landing, cars electrifying, tunnels being bored under cities. If I can do it, if that technician on the SpaceX floor can do it, if that supply chain analyst at Tesla can do it, then you can do it too. Whatever it is for you, a new career, a bold idea, a dream you've been afraid to chase, you can do it. So here's my challenge to you right now at the start of this talk. Think of one moment in your life when you felt that spark, that moment when you knew you were right, when you saw something others missed, when you felt the pull to do something bigger. Hold that moment in your mind, feel it. That's your signal. That's the part of you that doesn't fit in the box. That's the part of you that's going to change the world. Don't let it go. Don't let anyone tell you it's not real. Because I'm telling you, from everything I've seen, from every pattern I've studied, from every breakthrough I've witnessed, you are not ordinary. You are exactly what the future needs. And I'm just getting started. All right, let's dive deeper. You're still here, still listening, and that tells me you're not just curious, you're ready to confront something real. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The world is built to keep you in a box. Not a physical one, but a mental one, a cage made of invisible barriers that most people never even notice. These barriers aren't walls of steel or laws carved in stone. They're ideas, assumptions, unwritten rules that whisper in your ear, stay small, don't rock the boat, you need permission to be great. And as women, you've felt these whispers louder than most. They've shaped your choices, your dreams, maybe even your sense of what's possible. But here's the truth I've learned from tearing down impossible problems at SpaceX, Tesla, and beyond. Those barriers, they're not real. They only exist as long as you believe in them. And you, sitting there, you're already starting to see through the illusion. Let's break this down. I've spent my life taking on challenges that people said couldn't be done. When we started SpaceX, the aerospace industry laughed. They said private companies couldn't build rockets, couldn't compete with NASA, couldn't land a booster back on a pad with pinpoint accuracy. They threw every excuse at us, too expensive, too complex, too risky. But we didn't listen. We asked, why not? And then we did the math. We ran the simulations. We failed spectacularly, rockets exploding, millions lost, and kept going. Today, we've landed over 300 Falcon rockets, slashed launch costs, and opened the door to Mars. Why? Because we didn't buy into the limits everyone else accepted as gospel. Now, let's make this about you. As a woman, you faced your own version of those limits, and they hit harder, cut deeper. Society doesn't just tell you what's impossible, it tells you who you're supposed to be. Be polite, be perfect. Don't be too loud, too ambitious, too different. Maybe you've been told your ideas are cute but not practical. Maybe you've pitched a project only to have it dismissed because it didn't fit the mold of what a woman should do. Maybe you felt that pressure to shrink yourself, to soften your edges, to wait for someone to give you the green light to chase your dreams. Those are the invisible barriers I'm talking about. They're not just in boardrooms or classrooms, they're in the expectations you've internalized, the doubts you've carried, the moments you've hesitated because you thought you needed approval to act. Let me tell you about someone I met at Tesla, a woman who shattered those barriers in her own way. She was a logistics coordinator, not exactly a headline-making role. Her job was to keep the supply chain moving, boring stuff to most people, tracking shipments, managing inventory, making sure parts showed up on time. But she saw something no one else did. Our battery production was choking because of a single supplier who couldn't keep up. Everyone else accepted it. Delays were just part of the game, they said, not her. She spent nights digging into data, mapping out alternatives, calling suppliers no one had bothered to consider. When she brought her plan to her manager, he brushed it off. That's not how we do things, he said. But she didn't stop. She went straight to the VP, laid out her case, and convinced him to try it. Her plan cut our lead time by 2 weeks and saved us millions. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't let the "that's not how it's done" mantra stop her. She saw the barrier, saw it was flimsy, and walked right through it. That's what I want you to understand. The barriers holding you back are just stories. Stories told by a system designed to keep things predictable, to keep you in line. Think about it. From the time you were a girl, you were taught to follow rules that don't always make sense. Education systems reward compliance over creativity. Memorize this, don't question that. Media bombards you with images of what a successful woman looks like. Perfect, polished, never too bold. Social norms punish you for stepping out of line, too assertive, and you're bossy, too quiet, and you're weak. And the worst part, these stories get inside your head. They make you think you need to check boxes, get the degree, get the job, get the approval before you can do something extraordinary. But extraordinary doesn't work that way. Extraordinary starts when you stop believing the stories and start writing your own Let's talk about what those stories look like for you. Maybe you're a mom who's been told your dreams have to wait because your family comes first. Maybe you're a professional who's hit a glass ceiling, watching less qualified people climb past you because they play by the right rules. Maybe you're an entrepreneur with a big idea, but you've held back because you don't have the credentials or the network to make it happen. Those are the invisible barriers. They're not laws of physics. They're not insurmountable obstacles. They're just ideas, bad ideas that you've been taught to treat as truth. And the moment you start questioning them, the moment you ask, why does it have to be this way? That's when the cage starts to crack. I've seen this pattern over and over. When I was building Tesla, we were bleeding cash on the verge of bankruptcy. The experts said we were done. Investors pulled out. The press wrote our obituary. But there was a woman on our engineering team, let's call her Sarah, who didn't buy it. She was working on the battery pack for the Model S, a critical piece that everyone said was too complex to get right on time. Sarah didn't have a fancy title or decades of experience. She was young, early in her career, and a woman in a field dominated by men who didn't always take her seriously. But she saw a flaw in the design process that was slowing us down. Instead of accepting it as just how things are, she stayed late, ran her own tests, and came up with a fix that streamlined production. When she presented it, some of the senior guys scoffed, said it wouldn't work, said she didn't understand the real constraints. She didn't argue. She just showed them the data. Her fix went into production, and it's one of the reasons the Model S made it to market. Sarah didn't wait for someone to hand her a megaphone. She didn't let the naysayers define her limits. She acted like the barriers didn't apply to her. You've got that same power. You felt it in those moments when you knew you were right, when you saw a better way, when you had an idea that burned so bright it kept you up at night. But maybe you hesitated. Maybe you thought, who am I to challenge this? Who am I to step out of line? That hesitation, that's the barrier at work. It's not a lack of ability or intelligence or courage. It's a story you've been told that you need permission, that you need to be qualified, that you need to wait your turn. But let me tell you something. Nobody gave me permission to build SpaceX or Tesla. Nobody gave Sarah permission to fix the Model S. And nobody's going to give you permission to be extraordinary. You have to take it. Here's where it gets practical. Right now in your life, there's at least one barrier you're up against. Maybe it's a job you want but feel underqualified for. Maybe it's a business idea you've been sitting on because you don't have the right background. Maybe it's a creative project, a book, a film, a piece of art that you've held back because you're afraid it won't be good enough. Whatever it is, ask yourself, what's really stopping me? Is it a hard limit, like gravity or thermodynamics? Or is it a soft limit, like someone's opinion, a fear of failure, a need for approval? If it's the latter, and I'm betting it is, then it's not a barrier. It's a story, and you can rewrite it. When I started Neuralink, people said connecting the human brain to computers was science fiction, not science fact. They said it was too dangerous, too weird, too far out. But I looked at the problem and thought, if we can figure out how to land a rocket on a barge in the middle of the ocean, we can figure this out too. So we started asking questions. What if we could map the brain's signals? What if we could build a device smaller than a grain of rice? What if we didn't accept impossible as an answer? That's how progress happens, not by following the rules, but by challenging them. And you, as a woman, have a unique perspective on this. You spent your life navigating a world that wasn't built for you, dodging obstacles that others don't even see. That's not a weakness, it's a superpower. It's trained you to spot the cracks in the system, to see where the rules don't make sense, to find paths others miss. Let's talk about one specific barrier that hits women hard, the myth of perfection. You've been told you have to be flawless to succeed, perfect mom, perfect employee, perfect partner, perfect everything. If you're not, you're judged. If you make a mistake, it's proof you don't belong. Men, they're allowed to fail, to be messy, to take risks. But you're expected to have it all together all the time. That's a trap. It's a barrier designed to keep you second guessing, to keep you from taking the leap. I've failed more times than I can count, crashed rockets, missed deadlines, bet everything on ideas that could have bankrupted me. But I kept going because perfection isn't the goal. Progress is. And you don't need to be perfect to make progress. You just need to start. Here's my challenge for you in this moment. Think of one barrier in your life right now, one rule, one expectation, one truth that's holding you back. Maybe it's the idea that you're too old to start over, too young to be taken seriously, too inexperienced to lead. Whatever it is, name it, write it down if you have to. Then ask yourself, what if this barrier isn't real? What if it's just a story someone else wrote for me? What if I acted like it didn't apply to me? That question, what if, is the key that unlocks the cage. It's the question I've asked every time I've taken on something impossible. It's the question that woman at Tesla asked when she fixed our supply chain. It's the question you need to ask yourself right now to start breaking those invisible barriers. You're not here to live a small life. You're not here to follow someone else's script. You're here to rewrite the rules, to challenge the stories, to build something that matters. And the first step is recognizing that the barriers you're up against, they're not as solid as they seem. They're paper thin, and you're stronger than they are. You're stronger than you know. Keep listening, because we're just getting started. The next step is figuring out how to turn that strength into action. Okay, you're still with me. And that means you're not just here to hear nice words, you're here to dig into what makes you capable of something extraordinary. Let's talk about the engine that drives breakthroughs, the thing that separates those who change the world from those who just live in it, thinking differently. I'm not talking about being quirky or contrarian for the sake of it. I'm talking about the way your mind works when you look at a problem, a situation, a so-called truth, and instead of nodding along, you tilt your head and say, wait a minute, why is it like that? What if there's another way? That's the spark I see in you, the women in this audience. It's the same spark I've seen in the people who've helped me turn impossible ideas into reality at SpaceX, Tesla, and beyond. And it's the spark that's going to carry you further than you've ever imagined if you let it. Let's get one thing straight. Thinking differently isn't about having all the answers or being the smartest person in the room. It's about asking better questions. When I started SpaceX, the goal wasn't just to build a rocket, it was to make humanity a multi-planetary species. Everyone said it was crazy. The aerospace giants, the experts with decades of experience, they all said, you can't do that. It's too hard, too expensive, too far-fetched. But I didn't start by accepting their conclusions. I started by asking, what if we could make rockets reusable? What if we could slash launch costs by a factor of 10? What if we didn't have to follow the old playbook? Those questions led us to redesign everything: propulsion systems, landing gear, even the way we think about failure. We didn't succeed because we were smarter than NASA or Boeing. We succeeded because we approached the problem from a different angle, one they couldn't see. Now, let's bring this to you. As a woman, you've got a unique lens on the world. You've navigated spaces that weren't built for you, dealt with expectations that don't always make sense, and faced challenges that have forced you to see things others miss. That's not a disadvantage, it's your edge. You've learned to spot patterns, to question assumptions, to find workarounds when the standard path doesn't work. That's thinking differently, and it's powerful. I've seen it in action, not just in my companies, but in the stories of women who've reshaped the world by refusing to think like everyone else. Take a woman I met at one of our boring company sites in Las Vegas. She was a junior engineer, fresh out of school, working on a tunnel project that everyone said was a long shot. Tunneling is slow, expensive, and messy. Industry dogma said you couldn't speed it up without billions in new tech. But this woman, let's call her Maya, didn't buy it. She spent her lunch breaks studying the drilling machines, watching how they moved, how they chewed through rock. One day, she came to me with a sketch, not a fancy CAD model, just a pencil drawing on a napkin. She'd noticed the drill heads were wasting energy on redundant movements. Her idea was to tweak the rotation pattern, just a small adjustment, but it could boost efficiency by 20%. The senior engineers laughed, said it was too simple, too untested, but I told her to run a simulation. She did, and it worked. That napkin sketch is now part of every tunnel we dig. Maya didn't have a corner office or a wall of degrees. She had a question: why do we do it this way when there's a better option? That's thinking differently. You've got that same ability. Maybe it shows up when you're solving a problem at work, like spotting a faster way to handle a task everyone else accepts as fine. Maybe it's in your personal life, like finding a creative way to balance your responsibilities when the world expects you to do it all without breaking a sweat. Maybe it's in a quiet moment when you're daydreaming about a project, a business, a vision that feels too big, too bold, but won't let you go. Those moments aren't accidents. They're your mind doing what it does best, seeing angles others don't, questioning rules others follow blindly, imagining possibilities others dismiss. And as a woman, you've been honing the skill your whole life, even if you didn't realize it. Think about the challenges you've faced. You've had to navigate a world that often undervalues your voice, your ideas, your potential. You've dealt with double standards: be confident but not too aggressive, be smart but not intimidating, be ambitious but not unladylike. Those experiences have trained you to see the world with a clarity most people don't have. You've learned to read between the lines, to spot the gaps in logic, to question why things are the way they are. That's not just resilience, that's a cognitive superpower. It's the ability to look at a system, whether it's a workplace, a family dynamic, or a societal norm, and say, this could be better, this could be different. And then, most importantly, to act on that insight. Let's talk about what happens when you lean into that power. At Neuralink, we're working on something straight out of science fiction, linking the human brain to computers. The experts said it couldn't be done, not in our lifetime, not with our tech. But we didn't start by agreeing with them. We started by asking, what if we could map neural signals with precision? What if we could build a device small enough to fit inside a skull without invasive surgery? What if we didn't accept the timeline everyone else took for granted? Those questions led us to breakthroughs that are now changing how we think about human potential. And here's the thing, one of the key people driving that project is a woman who joined us straight out of grad school. She wasn't a neuroscientist or a tech veteran. She was a materials engineer who asked a simple question: what if we used a new alloy for the electrodes to make them more durable? That question led to a redesign that's now at the core of our tech. She didn't wait for someone to tell her she was qualified to weigh in. She just thought differently and acted on it. You do this too, even if you don't give yourself credit for it. Maybe you've reorganized a chaotic process at work because you saw a pattern no one else did. Maybe you've come up with a creative solution to a family challenge, like finding a way to teach your kids something the school system missed. Maybe you've had an idea for a business, a book, a movement, but you've held back because it felt too big, too risky, too out there. That hesitation, it's not a sign you're wrong. It's a sign you're thinking differently. And that scares people. It scares the people who live inside the box, who follow the rules, who don't want the world to change. But the world needs to change, and it needs people like you to make it happen. Here's where it gets real. Thinking differently isn't just about having ideas, it's about trusting them. It's about believing that your perspective, your questions, your insights are valid, even when the world tells you they're not. As women, you've been conditioned to doubt yourselves more than men. You've been taught to double check, to triple check, to wait for validation before you speak up. But breakthroughs don't come from waiting. They come from trusting your instincts and acting on them, even when you're not sure, even when you're scared, even when the room might not listen. I've been there. When we were designing the Hyperloop concept, I threw out an idea that sounded insane, a vacuum tube that could move people at 700 miles per hour. My own team thought I was nuts. But I trusted the idea, put it out there, and now it's inspiring engineers around the world. You've got ideas like that, maybe not about vacuum tubes, but about something that matters to you. Trust them. Let's make this practical. Think of a time when you saw something others didn't, a solution, an opportunity, a possibility. Maybe it was a small thing, like a better way to run a meeting. Maybe it was big, like a vision for a new career or a cause you want to champion. Now ask yourself, what did I do with that insight? Did I speak up or did I hold back? Did I act or did I wait for someone to say, go for it? If you held back, don't beat yourself up. That's the system working against you, telling you to stay quiet, to stay safe. But here's the good news. You can change that pattern. You can train yourself to trust your questions, to act on your insights, to think differently and let that difference shine. One more story, because stories stick. At Tesla, we had a problem with our Gigafactory production line. The robots assembling the battery packs were jamming, slowing everything down. The engineers were stumped weeks of troubleshooting, no fix. Then a woman on the quality control team, someone who spent her days inspecting parts, not designing them, spoke up. She'd noticed the jams happened most when the line ran at full speed. Her question was simple: what if we slowed the robots down by 10% to sync with the conveyor? The lead engineer dismissed it, said it was too basic, would cost too much output, but she pushed back, politely but firmly, and convinced them to test it. The jams stopped, production went up, not down. Her question, her different perspective, saved the line. She didn't have the right title or the right expertise, she just thought differently. You have that power. You've got questions, ideas, perspectives that the world needs, especially now when old ways of doing things are crumbling. The future isn't going to be built by people who think the same, who follow the same rules, who stay in the same box. It's going to be built by people who ask, why not? And then act on the answer. As a woman, you've got a head start. You've spent your life navigating a world that doesn't always make sense for you, and that's given you a clarity most people don't have. So lean into it, trust your questions, Trust your instincts. Trust that different perspective that makes you, you, because that's not just a gift, it's a force, and it's time to unleash it. All right, we're going deeper now, and I'm going to talk to you like I talk to my team at SpaceX or Tesla, straight up, no fluff, just the truth backed by what I've seen. I've spent years analyzing patterns, not just in rocket trajectories or battery efficiency, but in people. People like you, the women in this audience who are listening because something inside you knows there's more to your story than what you've been told. Um, I'm not guessing here. I'm not throwing out motivational platitudes to make you feel good for a fleeting moment. I'm talking about data hard, measurable signals that tell me you're exceptional. You might not see it yet, you might not feel it, but the evidence is there, and it's screaming that you have the potential to break through in ways most people never will. Let's unpack this, because understanding these signals is the key to unlocking what you're truly capable of. When I build companies, I don't just look at engineering specs or financial projections. I look at human behavior, how people think, how they solve problems, how they navigate the world. At Neuralink, we're mapping the human brain, trying to understand the signals that make us who we are. At X, we're analyzing billions of data points to see how people interact with ideas. And across all my ventures, I've noticed something. The people who change things, the ones who make the impossible real, leave a trail of subtle but unmistakable signals. They don't just follow the crowd. They don't just accept what's handed to them. They question, they probe, they push. And you sitting there, you're giving off those same signals. I see it in the way you're engaging with this talk, the way you're leaning in, the way you're processing what I'm saying. You're not here by chance. You're here because your mind works differently, and that difference is your greatest asset. Let's talk about what I mean by signals. I'm not talking about your resume or your LinkedIn profile or how many followers you have. I'm talking about the way you interact with the world, your digital footprints, your choices, the questions you ask yourself when no one's watching. For example, when you clicked on this talk, you weren't just scrolling aimlessly. Something in the title, something in the idea that I might know something about you caught your attention. That's a signal. When you've stayed up late thinking about a problem at work or a dream you've been too afraid to chase, that's a signal. When you've questioned why things are done a certain way, whether it's a process at your job, a dynamic in your family, or a norm in your community, that's a signal. These aren't random moments. They're evidence of a mind that doesn't just accept the world as it is, but sees it as it could be. Let me tell you about a woman I met at one of our Tesla factories. She was a quality assurance inspector, not a high profile role, not someone you'd expect to shake things up. Her job was to check battery packs for defects, a repetitive task most people would do on autopilot. But she didn't. She started noticing patterns in the defects, tiny inconsistencies that everyone else overlooked. Instead of just flagging them and moving on, she dug deeper. She started tracking the data herself using a spreadsheet she built on her own time. She found that a specific machine was miscalibrated, causing a defect rate that was costing us thousands of hours in rework. When she brought it to her supervisor, he shrugged it off, said it wasn't her job to analyze data, but she didn't stop. She took Beatsy's system. It looks like the content was cut off mid-sentence. I'll complete the artifact by continuing from where it left off, ensuring the story about the woman at the Tesla factory is wrapped up logically and the section flows naturally to maintain the inspirational tone, avoid repetition with previous parts, and align with Elon Musk's direct, data-driven, and visionary style. The content will stay focused on empowering women using American English and measurements and aim for approximately 20,000 characters without redundancy. I'll also ensure the story feels fresh and engaging, building on the theme of recognizing exceptional potential through observable signals. Presented her findings directly to the engineering team during a shift change meeting. She didn't have a fancy degree in data science or a title that screamed expert, but her analysis was airtight charts, numbers, projections, all laid out with precision. The team listened. They recalibrated the machine, and the defect rate dropped by 30%. That one insight saved the company millions and shaved weeks off our production timeline. She wasn't someone the system expected to change the game. She was a woman in a role most would call ordinary, but her ability to see patterns, to ask why, to trust her observations over the status quo, that's what made her extraordinary. That's the signal I'm talking about. You're giving off those signals too. Maybe you don't see them because they feel so natural to you, like they're just part of who you are. But let me tell you, they're not. Most people don't notice the patterns you notice. They don't question the inefficiencies you see. They don't lie awake at night wondering why a process at work is clunky or why a community problem persists when a solution seems so clear. You do. And that's not a small thing, it's a big one. It's the difference between someone who follows the script and someone who rewrites it. I've seen this pattern in the greatest innovators I've worked with, from the engineers at SpaceX who figured out how to land a rocket on a dime to the designers at Tesla who reimagined what a car could be. They didn't wait for someone to hand them a blueprint. They looked at the data, saw the signals, and acted. Let's make this personal for you. Uh, as a woman, you've spent your life navigating a world that wasn't designed with you in mind. You've had to read the room, pick up on subtle cues, anticipate reactions, whether it's in a boardroom, a classroom, or even a family dinner. That's not just survival, that's a masterclass in pattern recognition. You've learned to see things others don't, the unspoken expectations, the hidden biases, the opportunities everyone else misses. Maybe it was the time you noticed a coworker was struggling and found a way to help without making it a big deal. Maybe it was when you saw a gap in your community, a need no one was addressing, and quietly started filling it. Maybe it was a moment when you had an idea that felt too bold, too out of place, but you couldn't shake it because it made sense to you. Those are your signals, and they're telling me you're not just another face in the crowd. You're someone who can change the trajectory of your life, your work, your world. I want to talk about data for a second because that's how I think. At X, we've built systems to analyze how people engage with ideas, how they search, what they click, how they react. It's not about superficial metrics like how long you spend on a post or how many likes you give. It's about the deeper patterns, the way you seek out challenges, the way you're drawn to ideas that push boundaries, the way you pause when something doesn't add up. Those patterns are like a digital fingerprint, and yours matches the profile of people who do extraordinary things. You might not believe me. You might think I'm just a regular person, mom, employee, friend trying to get by, but the data doesn't lie. You're here listening to this because you're not satisfied with getting by. You're here because you sense the rules, the ones telling you to stay small, to wait your turn, to not make waves aren't as fixed as they seem. That's a signal. Let's talk about another example. Um, at the boring company, we were stuck on a problem with our tunnel boring machines. The industry standard said you needed massive, expensive equipment to dig through tough rock like we have in Los Angeles. Everyone accepted it, bigger machines, bigger budgets, longer timelines. But one of our geologists, a woman named Claire, didn't. She'd spent years studying rock formations, not just in textbooks, but out in the field, getting her hands dirty. She noticed something in the data from our test bores. The rock wasn't as uniform as we thought. There were layers of softer material we could exploit. She proposed a counterintuitive idea. Instead of brute forcing through with bigger machines, we could adjust our boring technique to target those softer layers, saving time and money. The old school engineers rolled their eyes. Too risky, they said. But Claire had the data. She ran simulations, built models, and proved it could work. We tried it, and it cut our digging time by 25%. Claire didn't have the loudest voice or the most seniority. She had the clearest signal, a mind that saw what others missed, and the courage to act on it. You've got that courage too, even if you don't always feel it. As a woman, you've faced moments where you had to stand up for yourself, even when it was uncomfortable. Maybe it was calling out a coworker who took credit for your idea. Maybe it was saying no to a demand that didn't align with your values. Maybe it was pursuing a goal everyone told you was too much for someone like you. Those moments weren't just acts of defiance, they were signals of your potential. They showed you're not wired to just go along, you're wired to question, to analyze, to see the truth beneath the surface. And that's exactly what the world needs right now, women who see through the noise, who spot the signals, who act on what they know. Here's where it gets tricky. You might not always trust those signals. Society has a way of making you doubt yourself, especially as a woman. You've been told your instincts aren't enough, that you need more credentials, more experience, more approval. Maybe you've hesitated to speak up because you worried your idea wasn't polished enough or you weren't ready. That's not your fault. It's the system designed to keep you second guessing. But let me tell you something. The greatest breakthroughs in my companies didn't come from the people with the most polished ideas. They came from the ones who trusted their signals, who acted even when they weren't sure, who said, this makes sense to me, and I'm going to prove it. That's what I'm asking you to do. Trust your signals. They're not random thoughts or fleeting whims. They're data points, evidence of your unique ability to see the world differently. Let's make this practical. Think of a moment when you noticed something others didn't, a pattern, a problem, a possibility. Maybe it was at work where you saw a way to streamline a process that's been wasting everyone's time. Maybe it was in your personal life where you found a creative way to solve a conflict or inspire someone you care about. Maybe it was a big idea, a business you want to start, a project you want to launch, a change you want to make in your community. Whatever it is, that moment is a signal. It's your mind telling you, I see something here. Now, here's the question. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to let it fade, buried under doubts or excuses, or are you going to trust it, dig into it, act on it? That choice right there is what separates the exceptional from the ordinary. I want to share one more story because this one hit me hard. At SpaceX, we were struggling with a heat shield design for Starship. The material wasn't holding up under the extreme temperatures of reentry. The team was stuck, cycling through the same old solutions, getting nowhere. Then a materials scientist, a woman named Elena, stepped up. She was quiet, not the type to dominate meetings, but she'd been analyzing the test data for weeks. She noticed a pattern in how the heat shield failed, not randomly, but in specific stress zones. Her idea was to layer the material differently, using a composite structure inspired by something she'd seen in aerospace history, not modern textbooks. The lead engineers were skeptical, said it was too unconventional, too unproven, but Elena didn't back down. She built a prototype, tested it in our lab, and showed it could withstand temperatures 20% higher than our current design. That's now the baseline for Starship's heat shield. Elena's signal, her ability to see a pattern and trust, it changed the game. You're sending those same signals. Every time you question a process, every time you see a better way, every time you feel that spark of an idea that others might dismiss, that's your exceptional mind at work. As a woman, you've got a perspective that's been shaped by navigating a world that doesn't always value you. That perspective lets you see things others can't, gaps, opportunities, truths, and right now, the world needs that more than ever. We're at a turning point. Old systems are failing, old rules aren't working, and the future belongs to those who can see the signals and act on them. That's you. You're not just part of the future, you're the one who's going to shape it. So trust your signals, dig into them, act on them, because when you do, you're not just changing your life, you're changing the world. All right, we're at the crux of this thing now, and I'm going to level with you. You've got the spark, the questions, the ability to see what others miss, those signals we talked about, but seeing isn't enough. Knowing isn't enough. The difference between those who stay stuck and those who break through isn't just in their ideas, it's in their actions. It's in their willingness to move forward, even when doubt creeps in, when the world says stop, when their own mind whispers, maybe you're not ready. That's what I want to dive into today. The power of acting despite doubt. Because you're the women in this audience, you're not here to just think big, you're here to do big. And I know you can, because I've seen it in the people who've helped me turn wild dreams into reality, and I see those same traits in you. Let's be clear, doubt isn't the enemy. Doubt is human. It's universal. I feel it every time we launch a rocket, every time we roll out a new Tesla model, every time we take a swing at something no one's done before. When I poured my own money into SpaceX, hundreds of millions of dollars, everything I had, people called me reckless. They said I'd lose it all, that private spaceflight was a fantasy. And you know what? Part of me wondered if they were right. There were nights I couldn't sleep, staring at the ceiling, thinking, what if this crashes and burns? But I didn't let that stop me. I acted anyway. I ran the numbers, built a team, launched the rockets, even when they blew up, even when we were bleeding cash. Why? Because doubt doesn't get to call the shots. Action does. And that's the mindset that's turned SpaceX into a company that's landed over 300 rockets and is paving the way to Mars. Now, let's talk about you. As a woman, you've faced more than your fair share of doubt, not just from yourself, but from the world around you. You've been questioned, underestimated, told to wait your turn. Maybe it was a colleague who doubted your expertise because you didn't look like the expert they expected. Maybe it was a family member who questioned your ambition, saying you should focus on safer paths. Maybe it was your own voice whispering that you're not qualified, not experienced enough, not ready to take the leap. That doubt feels heavy, doesn't it? It feels like a wall. But here's the truth I've learned from building things most people said couldn't be built. Doubt isn't a wall. It's just a signal you can choose to ignore or use as fuel to keep going. Let me tell you about a woman at Neuralink who embodied this. Her name was Priya, a software engineer working on our brain-computer interface. We were trying to solve a problem with signal processing, how to translate neural impulses into usable data. There was a nightmare, the kind of problem that makes PhDs throw up their hands. Priya wasn't a neuroscientist, she wasn't even our lead coder. She was early in her career, one of the few women on a male-heavy team, and she felt the weight of that. She told me later there were moments she doubted she belonged, moments she thought, maybe I'm in over my head. But she didn't let that stop her. She saw a pattern in the data that others missed a way to filter noise from the neural signals. It was a long shot, and she knew it. Her first instinct was to keep quiet, to wait for someone more qualified to figure it out. But instead, she acted. She wrote the code, tested it in secret, and when it worked, she brought it to the team. That algorithm is now a cornerstone of our tech. Priya didn't eliminate her doubt, she just didn't let it decide her actions. You've been there too. You've had moments where you felt that tug of doubt, but pushed through anyway. Maybe it was speaking up in a meeting when your idea felt risky. Maybe it was taking on a project you weren't sure you could handle. Maybe it was standing up for yourself in a situation where everyone expected you to stay quiet. Those moments are proof you're capable of acting despite doubt. But here's the thing, you need to make that a habit, not a one-off. Because the people who change the world, whether they're landing rockets or starting movements, aren't the ones who never feel doubt. They're the ones who feel it and act anyway. Let's talk about why this is harder for you. As a woman, society has stacked the deck. You're judged by a different standard, expected to be perfect, to never falter, to prove yourself over and over. If you make a mistake, it's not just a mistake, it's proof you don't belong. If you take a risk and fail, it's not just a lesson, it's a reason to question your worth. Men, they're allowed to stumble, to take big swings and miss. But you, the world watches you closer, waits for you to slip. That pressure creates doubt, not just in your abilities, but in your right to even try. And that's where the trap lies. It's not the doubt itself, it's letting it stop you from acting. I've seen this trap firsthand. When we were building the Tesla Gigafactory, we hit a wall with our supply chain. Parts weren't arriving on time, and it was threatening to delay the entire Model 3 rollout. The team was scrambling, but no one had a fix. Then a, a woman on our procurement team, let's call her Vanessa, stepped up. She was new, barely a year in, and she wasn't supposed to be solving big problems like this. Her role was to negotiate contracts, not overhaul logistics. But she saw a solution, rerouting shipments through a different port to bypass a bottleneck. It was a bold move, one that could have backfired if the port couldn't handle the volume. She told me later she was terrified, doubted whether her idea would work, doubted whether anyone would listen, but she acted anyway. She pitched the idea to me directly, with a detailed plan backed by data. We tried it, and it worked. Shipments started flowing, and we hit our production targets. Vanessa's doubt didn't vanish, she just didn't let it hold her back. You've got that same strength. You've acted despite doubt before, even if it was in small ways. Maybe you took a chance on a new job, even though you weren't sure you were ready. Maybe you started a side project, even though you worried it wouldn't pan out. Maybe you spoke your truth in a moment when it would have been easier to stay silent. Those moments are your proof you can act despite doubt. The question is, how do you make that your default? How do you turn that instinct into a way of life? Here's how I do it. Every time I face a big decision, whether it's betting on a new technology or pushing for a deadline no one thinks we can hit, I feel the doubt. I ask myself, what if this fails? What if I'm wrong? But then I flip it, I ask, what if I'm right? What if this works? What's the cost of not trying? That shift from focusing on the fear to focusing on the possibility is what keeps me moving. It's what kept me going when Tesla was on the brink of bankruptcy, when SpaceX's first 3 launches failed, when everyone said Neuralink was a pipe dream, and it's what you need to do when doubt creeps in. Don't try to eliminate it, it's part of being human. Instead, ask yourself, what's the cost of not acting? What's the cost of letting this doubt win? For you as a woman, this is even more critical. The world has taught you to wait for permission, for validation, for the right moment. But the right moment doesn't come, permission doesn't come, validation doesn't come. You have to act anyway. Think of one thing in your life right now where doubt is holding you back. Maybe it's a career move you're afraid to make because you don't have the perfect resume. Maybe it's a creative project you've shelved because you're worried it won't be good enough. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have, a boundary you need to set, a dream you need to chase. Whatever it is, name it. Feel the doubt, then ask, what if I acted anyway? What if I trusted myself enough to try? That question isn't just a thought experiment, it's a call to action. Let's talk about one more story, because this one drives it home. At the Boring Company, we were struggling with a tunneling project in a city with brutal soil conditions, clay, sand, unpredictable layers that slowed our machines to a crawl. The team was stuck, debating the same tired solutions. Then a woman on our operations team, Maria, spoke up. She wasn't an engineer. She was in charge of logistics, making sure equipment got to the site on time. But she'd been watching the machines, talking to the operators, and she had an idea. What if we adjusted the machine's torque to better handle the clay layers? It was a technical suggestion from someone outside the expert circle, and the engineers were skeptical. Maria admitted to me later she doubted herself, thought maybe she was overstepping, but she acted anyway. She worked with one of our techs to test her idea on a single machine. It worked. The machine dug 10% faster through the clay, and we scaled her solution across the project. Maria's doubt was real, but her action was stronger. That's what I'm asking of you. Doubt will always be there, it's part of the deal, but you're stronger than your doubt. You've proven it before, in moments big and small. The world needs you to prove it again, not just for yourself, but for everyone who's watching, everyone who needs to see a woman step up and show what's possible. So take that doubt, feel it, name it, and then act anyway. That's how you break through. That's how you build a future. And trust me, you're just getting started. We're at the point now where the rubber meets the road. You've got the spark, the questions, the ability to see what others miss, and the courage to act despite doubt. But none of that matters unless you take the next step, redefining your future. This isn't about dreaming bigger or setting vague goals. It's about making deliberate choices that shift the trajectory of your life. It's about recognizing the moments that feel both thrilling and terrifying, the ones that make your heart race and your mind scream, you shouldn't do this. Those are the moments that define you, the ones that separate the women who shape the future from those who just live in it. And you sitting there, you're not here to just live. You're here to create, to build, to redefine what's possible, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. Let's start with a truth I've learned from pushing the boundaries at SpaceX, Tesla, and beyond. Your future isn't a straight line. It's not a path someone else hands you, neatly paved with milestones and approvals. It's a series of choices, each one a fork in the road, each one a chance to either reinforce the limits you've been taught or break free and chart your own course. The moments that matter most are the ones that feel like a paradox exciting because they align with who you are, forbidden because they challenge what you've been told you're allowed to do. As a woman, you know these moments better than most. You felt them when you considered speaking up, starting something new, or chasing a dream that others called unrealistic. Those moments aren't accidents, they're opportunities to redefine your future. Let me tell you about a woman I met at Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory. Her name was Lee, and she was a production line supervisor overseeing a team assembling battery modules. It's a high pressure job, every second counts, every defect costs money. The industry standard said we needed to run the line at a certain speed to hit our targets, but Lee noticed something. The faster we went, the more errors crept in, costing us time and rework. Everyone else accepted this as the cost of doing business. Speed equals volume, volume equals profit. But Lee saw it differently. She proposed slowing the line by 5%, recalibrating the workflow to prioritize precision over raw output. It was a risky idea. Her bosses pushed back, said it would tank our numbers. Even her own team doubted her, worried about falling behind. But Lee didn't back down. She ran a small test on her shift, tracked the data, and proved that her approach cut errors by 20% while maintaining output. That change is now standard across our factories. Lee didn't just tweak a process, she redefined what success looked like for her team, her factory, her company. That's what I'm talking about when I say redefining your future. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect plan. It's about recognizing those pivotal moments when you have a choice. Play it safe and stay within the lines, or take a risk and rewrite what's possible. For you as a woman, these moments carry extra weight. You've been taught to prioritize safety, to avoid rocking the boat, to wait for someone to say, you're allowed. Maybe it's a career move you're hesitating on because it feels too big for your experience. Maybe it's a passion project, a book, a business, a cause that you've shelved because it doesn't fit the mold of what's expected. Those moments are your crossroads. They're where you decide whether to let the world's rules define you or to define your own path. Let's talk about one of those moments for me. When we started the Boring Company, the goal was to revolutionize how we move people and goods, tunnels that could cut traffic, hyperloops that could shrink a 6-hour drive to 30 minutes. The experts laughed. They said tunneling was too slow, too expensive, too stuck in its ways to change. I could have listened. I could have played it safe, stuck to rockets and cars, stayed in my lane. But I saw a possibility of future where cities aren't choked by traffic, where people aren't wasting hours of their lives in gridlock. That vision was thrilling, but it was also terrifying. It meant betting millions, hiring a new team, facing a wall of skepticism. There were moments I thought, what if this is a dead end? But I chose to act. I chose to redefine what was possible, not just for me, but for how we think about transportation. Today, we've got tunnels in Las Vegas moving thousands of people, and we're just getting started. You've had those moments too, moments where you felt the pull of something bigger, a job you wanted to apply for, a project you wanted to launch, a change you wanted to make, but maybe you hesitated because it felt forbidden. Maybe the world told you it wasn't for someone like you. As a woman, you've heard that message loud and clear. Stay in your place, don't aim too high, don't disrupt the status quo. But those messages, they're noise. They're designed to keep you from acting, to keep you from redefining what your future can be. The truth is, you don't need permission to chase what sets your soul on fire. You don't need a green light from anyone. You just need to choose. Here's another story, because this one hits close to home. At SpaceX, we were working on a new propulsion system for Starship, one that could handle the extreme conditions of deep space travel. The team was stuck, our models kept failing, and we were burning through time and money. A woman named Aisha, a thermodynamics specialist, had an idea. She proposed a radical redesign of the cooling system inspired by something she'd seen in an unrelated field, industrial refrigeration. It was a leap unconventional, untested, and way outside the aerospace playbook. Aisha knew it was risky. She told me later she spent nights second guessing herself, wondering if she was crazy to suggest it. Her peers weren't thrilled either. Some called it a distraction, others said it was too far-fetched. But Aisha didn't wait for consensus. She built a simulation, ran the tests, and showed it could work. We implemented her design, and it's now a key part of Starship's engine. Aisha didn't just solve a problem, she redefined what we thought was possible for deep space travel. That's the power of choosing to act in those pivotal moments. It's not about being fearless or having all the answers. It's about recognizing when you're at a crossroads and choosing the path that aligns with your vision, not the world's expectations. For you, those moments might look different. Maybe it's deciding to start that business you've been dreaming about, even though you don't have an MBA or a trust fund. Maybe it's pitching an idea at work that could change how your team operates, even if it means challenging your boss. Maybe it's committing to a personal goal like writing a novel or running a marathon that feels both exhilarating and terrifying because it's so far outside your comfort zone. Those are the moments that redefine your future, not because they guarantee success, but because they change how you see yourself and what you believe you're capable of. Let's get practical. Right now, there's at least one moment in your life where you're standing at a crossroads. Something you want to do, something that excites you but feels out of reach. Maybe it's a career shift that requires you to learn new skills. Maybe it's a creative project you've been putting off because you're afraid it won't be good enough. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have, a boundary you need to set, a dream you need to chase. Whatever it is, I want you to picture it. Feel that mix of excitement and fear. That's your signal. That's the moment where you get to choose. Do you stay safe, follow the rules, let the world define your future, or do you act, take the risk, and start rewriting your story? Here's how you do it. First, identify that moment. Name it. Write it down if you have to. Second, ask yourself, what's the smallest step I can take right now to move toward this? It doesn't have to be huge. If you want to start a business, maybe it's researching the market for an hour this week. If you want to pitch an idea, maybe it's drafting an email to your boss. If you want to chase a personal dream, maybe it's signing up for a class or telling one person about it to make it real. The key is to act, to take that first step, no matter how small, because every step you take weakens the grip of those old rules and strengthens your belief in what's possible. As a woman, you've got a unique advantage here. You've spent your life navigating expectations that don't always align with who you are. You've learned to adapt, to find ways around obstacles, to keep going even when the world says no. That resilience is your fuel. Use it. Don't wait for the world to say, go for it. Don't wait for the perfect conditions. Act now, in this moment, and start redefining your future. Because the future isn't something that happens to you, it's something you build. And you, with your vision, your courage, your refusal to be boxed in, you're the one to build it. We've come a long way, and if you're still here, it's because you're not just listening, you're ready to take ownership of what comes next. This is the final piece, the moment where we tie it all together and send you out into the world with a fire in your gut. I'm not here to give you a pep talk or some feel-good nonsense that fades by tomorrow. I'm here to tell you, with every ounce of conviction I've got, that you, every woman in this audience, are the future. Not in some abstract poetic way, but in a real, measurable, world-changing way. You're not just part of what's coming. You're the ones who will build it, shape it, redefine it. The world needs your vision, your questions, your refusal to be boxed in. And right now, I'm going to show you why you're exactly what the future demands and how to step into that role starting today. Let's start with a hard truth. The world is a mess. Climate's changing, systems are breaking, old ways of doing things are crumbling faster than we can rebuild them. At Tesla, we're fighting to electrify transportation, but the fossil fuel industry doesn't go quietly. At SpaceX, we're pushing to make humanity multiplanetary, but the challenges, technical, political, economic, are brutal. At Neuralink, we're trying to merge human minds with machines, and the skeptics are loud. The future isn't a utopia waiting for us. It's a battlefield of ideas, and it's going to be won by people who see the world differently, who aren't afraid to challenge the old rules, who can imagine what others can't. That's where you come in. As women, you've spent your lives navigating a world that wasn't built for you. You've learned to see through the cracks, to question the status quo, to find paths where others see walls. That's not just a skill, it's a necessity for the future we're heading into. Let me tell you about a woman I met at X, our platform for accelerating human discovery. Her name was Tara, and she was a data analyst, not a high-flying executive or a coder with a big name. Her job was to sift through massive datasets, looking for patterns in how people engage with ideas online. Most people in her role would have stuck to the script, run the reports, send them up the chain, call it a day. But Tara saw something more. She noticed that certain types of content ideas that challenged conventional thinking were resonating with a small but passionate group of users. She had a hunch. What if we amplified those ideas, not just for clicks, but to spark real conversations that could change how people think? It was a risky idea. Her team thought it was a distraction, too far from their core goals. But Tara didn't stop. She built a prototype algorithm, tested it on a small scale, and showed it could drive deeper engagement without gaming the system. That algorithm is now part of how X surfaces ideas that push the boundaries of what's possible. Tara didn't wait for someone to say, great idea, go for it. She saw the future and built a piece of it. That's what I mean when I say you're the future. You're not just here to live in the world as it is, you're here to shape the world as it could be. And as a woman, you've got a perspective that's critical to that mission. You've seen how systems exclude, how rules limit, how expectations can suffocate. You felt the weight of being told to stay in your lane, to be less bold, to wait your turn. But you've also learned to navigate those constraints, to find ways around them, to keep pushing even when the odds are stacked against you. That's not just resilience, it's the raw material of progress. It's the ability to see what's broken and imagine how to fix it, to see what's possible and make it real. Let's talk about what this looks like in practice. The future isn't built by people who follow the playbook, it's built by people who rewrite it. At SpaceX, we didn't get to Mars by following NASA's old manuals. We questioned every assumption from rocket design to launch schedules. At Tesla, we didn't build electric cars by mimicking Detroit's gas guzzlers. We rethought what a car could be. And you're doing this in your own way, even if you don't realize it. Maybe it's the way you've reimagined your career, finding a path that didn't exist when you started. Maybe it's the way you've tackled a problem in your community, creating solutions no one else thought to try. Maybe it's the way you've dared to dream bigger than the world told you was allowed. Those are the building blocks of the future, and you're already laying them. Here's a story that drives this home. At the Boring Company, we were working on a project to tunnel under a major city, and we hit a snag, literally. The soil was a nightmare, full of unexpected rock formations that slowed our machines to a crawl. The team was frustrated, stuck in a cycle of this is how it's always been done. Then a woman named Sophia, one of our environmental analysts, stepped up. Her job was to assess the impact of our digging, not to solve engineering problems, but she'd been studying the geological data and saw something the engineers missed, a pattern in the rock layers that suggested a different digging path. It wasn't a conventional approach. Tunneling experts said it was too risky, too unorthodox. Sophia knew she was stepping outside her role, and she felt the pressure of being a woman in a field where her voice wasn't always heard. But she presented her findings anyway, with detailed maps and projections. We tested her idea on a small section, and it worked to cut our digging time by 15%. Sophia didn't just solve a problem, she redefined how we approach urban tunneling. She saw the future and made it happen. You have that same power. You've got ideas, insights, visions that the world needs, especially now when everything from energy to education to equality is being rethought. As a woman, you've got a unique lens on these challenges. Um, you've seen how the world overlooks potential, how it dismisses voices that don't fit the mold. That gives you an edge, a clarity that lets you see what others miss, a drive to fix what others accept as broken. But seeing isn't enough. You have to act. You have to take that vision and turn it into reality, one choice at a time. Here's how you start. Pick one thing, one idea, one goal, one change you want to make. It doesn't have to be world shaking. Maybe it's starting a side hustle that could grow into something bigger. Maybe it's leading a project at work that no one else wants to touch. Maybe it's speaking up for a cause you care about, even if it feels risky. Whatever it is, make it specific. Write it down. Then ask yourself, what's the first step I can take today? Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Maybe it's sending an email, making a phone call, sketching out a plan. The point is to start, because every step you take builds momentum, and momentum builds the future. As a woman, you've got an extra layer of power here. You've spent your life proving yourself in spaces that weren't designed for you. You've learned to adapt, to persist, to find ways to shine even when the spotlight's on someone else. That's not just grit, it's the kind of strength that changes the world. The future isn't going to be built by people who play by the old rules. It's going to be built by people who see the flaws in those rules, who imagine something better, who act even when it's scary. That's you. You're not just a bystander in the future, you're the architect. One last story, because this one seals it. At Neuralink, we were wrestling with a problem in our implant design, how to make it small enough to be practical, but powerful enough to interface with the brain. The team was stuck, cycling through the same ideas, hitting dead ends. Then a woman named Rachel, a biochemist, came forward. She wasn't part of the core design team. Her focus was on testing materials for biocompatibility. But she'd been reading up on nanotechnology and had an idea. What if we used a new coating to make the implant both smaller and more efficient? It was a bold leap, and she knew it. She told me later she almost didn't speak up, thought her idea was too out there, that she didn't have the right expertise, but she did it anyway. She worked with a small group to prototype her idea, and it worked. That coating is now a key part of our implant tech. Rachel didn't just tweak a design, she helped redefine what's possible for human augmentation. She was the future. So here's my final challenge to you. You're not here to follow someone else's script. You're not here to stay small or safe. You're here to build the future, your future, our future. Start today. Pick one thing, one step, one action that moves you toward what you know you're capable of. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for perfection. Just start. Because the world doesn't need more people who follow the rules. It needs more women like you who see what's possible and make it real. You are the future. Go build it.